Hello and thank you for joining us for News Bulletin. Here with me, Tandio and Zumara. Let's take a look at our top stories. Pope Francis reveals he wrote resignation later in 2013 in case of ill health. National Children's Parliament laments failure by MDAs to implement their resolutions. Ministry of Natural Resources moves to increase survival rate of planted trees with 85% in a bid to mitigate effects of climate change. And in international news, Ghana suspends payment of most external debts. We do have the details to these stories and more. Do stay with us. Pope Francis has revealed that he wrote a resignation later, shortly after being elected pontiff in 2013, in case medical problems prevented him from carrying out his duties. He told the Spanish newspaper ABC he had already signed his renunciation when asked in an interview what would happen if health issues or an accident left a pope unable to carry out his duties. The Holy Father, who had bowel surgery in 2021 and has been affected by knee pain that for months forced him to use a wheelchair, said he had given the nod to Cardinal Tarcisio Berton, who then was the Vatican Secretary of State. We have more details in this Vatican News report read by Bridget Manuka.
The pontiff, who turned 86 on Saturday, quipped that now that he had revealed the existence of the resignation note, someone will run up to Berton and demand that piece of paper. He added that he was sure Berton would have passed on the letter to the current Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin. In past remarks, the Pope has held the decision of his predecessor, Pope Benedict XVI, to resign before he felt due to advancing age he would not be best able to carry out his duties. Pope Francis in the interview played down his mobility issues, saying one governs with the head, not the knee, and he has increasingly used a cane instead of a wheelchair to get around in public. Catholic Church law requires a papal resignation be freely and properly manifested, as was the case when Pope Benedict XVI startled the world when he announced his resignation to a gathering of prelates at the Vatican in February 2013.
The National Children's Parliament has expressed disappointment with the tendency by government ministries, departments and agencies, MDAs, to disregard resolutions the children present during their meetings. Speaker of the Malawi National Children's Parliament, Ngomijani Nyasulu, expressed the disappointment early today in Lilongwe at the opening of the second session of the Children's Parliament. The Ministry of Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare has facilitated the session with financial support from Save the Children, World Vision Malawi, Plan International Malawi, and Judith Foundation to allow children deliberate on issues affecting them. Whatever Mzungu has filed this report, read in our studios by Bernard Manza.
The National Children's Parliament has attracted 88 children from all the 28 districts in Malawi. According to its speaker, Gomeziani Nyasuru, the Children's Parliament is an important platform where children can amplify their voices. She, however, lamented failure by ministries, departments and agencies to act on their recommendations and resolutions made during their sessions.
The duty bearers, they're supposed to find or put some money or invest some money so that what we're going to say should be implemented. The issues which have been lined up in education sector, the challenges we meet in education sector, and in healthy sector as well. Not only that, even climatical problems as well as child marriages. World Vision Malawi Director of Advocacy, Communication and Children's Justice Charles Gwengwe said his organization regards the creation of space for the children to voice out their concerns as paramount in raising responsible future leaders.
Gwengwe, who was standing in for the organization's country representative, said time had gone when children could not talk about their fears and aspirations, and that it is important to give them space as enshrined in the Convention on Rights of Children, CRC.
We all are aware when we grew up, changing from childhood to adulthood, we really had aspiration, we had views that were suppressed. So what we are trying to encourage in our setup is to create that platform and space for our children to begin to voice out things that affect them.
In his remarks, Deputy Director of Child Affairs in the Ministry of Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare, Justin Hamera, admitted the gaps in the implementation of resolutions from Children's Parliament, but he was quick to point out that the government is working hard to push local councils to incorporate children's issues in their budget planning.
The child participation guidelines we have developed is to ensure that child participation should be at all levels. Here we are witnessing the National Children's Parliament, but we also want to see all councils doing the district children's parliament, but also at the tier level. They should be able to meet and get empowered.
The session will come to an end tomorrow, Wednesday. During the first session of National Children's Parliament in December last year, children members of Parliament, who were 80 in total and drawn from selected districts across the country, raised concerns over the deteriorating education standards, which they feared may negatively affect their dreams for a brighter future.
In more related news, child rights activist Amos Chibana has called on law enforcers to help more in the implementation of rights of children, as some child abuse convictions do not carry stiff punishment. In an interview with Luntha TV, Chibana said Malawi is not doing well in as far as the implementation of the provisions of the Convention on the Rights of a Child is concerned, emphasizing that Malawi must have a mindset change in advancing matters of child protection. Chibana has called upon community leaders, government and civil society organizations, CSOs, to join hands in mainstreaming child protection issues and all rights of children in all sectors. Charity Chilanga has more of the details.
The rights of a child are specific rights to protect all young people under 18. Children are entitled to these rights to protect their more vulnerable position in society and to give their position special attention. According to child rights activist Amos Chibana, Malawi seems to have political will as it has the legal instruments that have been set in place when talking about Child Care Protection and Justice Act, the Constitution among others inherited from the Convention on the Rights of Children. He said Malawi likes implementation of legal instruments towards children, as the country is appreciating a lot of abuses towards children.
First and foremost, we need to have mindset change. Let us have fear of the law, because in whatever happens, we should know that the law will be on our back, and that is going to hit us bad, just because we have abused the children or a child. So, as a people, we need to embrace mindset change. We have to be reasoning enough in matters of child protection, and we also need to be asking questions. So, what benefit that do I have when I abuse this particular child? In such doing that, we will let us avoid as individuals and as communities. Avoid abusing children, and those children will be protected and be safeguarded. At the same time, we need now to work hand in hand with our legal councils. We agree with me that some of the convictions that will happen do not carry stiff punishment.
Rights of children are important as they recognize the right to meaningful participation of youth on policies and programs that concern them, protect children from violence and abuse, among other things. Reporting for Luntha Television News in Lilongwe, this is Charity Chilanga.
Government, through the Ministry of Health, has called for collaboration and compliance by the general public in the fight against cholera. According to the ministry's spokesperson, Adrian Chigumbe, the measures already put in place are the ones that should work in ending the further spread of the disease, and that problems and setbacks are coming in due to non-compliance of other members in different communities. He has said everyone should be responsible enough and seek proper medical attention as soon as they start experiencing the symptoms, as cholera is easy to treat, though it can kill fast. We have more details on this report by Jacqueline Saidi.
At a health centre in Malawi's commercial capital Blantyre, a nurse is checking the IV drip on a patient, one victim of the country's worst cholera outbreak in more than a decade. For the patient's mother, Alida Piri, it is her second time in this ward.
She's not the only one. Her younger sister was also right here in this very room a couple of days ago. I can testify that cholera is a serious disease and we need to take precautions.
Malawi's healthcare system has identified a few health centres to focus on cholera treatment. Patients have been arriving in droves, and healthcare workers like Eunice Mselemu say they are struggling.
When you want to, you know what to do, but then you don't have this. You don't have.
We do apologize for giving you the wrong report. However, proceeding with the news, the Department of Immigration and Citizenship Services has said it is committed to increase border patrol, permit inspection and compliance in the country during this festive season. Speaking with Luntha TV, spokesperson for National Immigration, Pasquale Zulu, said the move will help curtail criminal activities, among them border jumping and use of fake immigration stamps. Zulu has since advised the general public, especially those who are willing to embark on cross-border travels, to always use formal crossing points. He has also appealed to the general public not to make any travel arrangements until their travel documents are ready. Here is part of what Zulu had to say.
Well, it is within our mandate of the department in making sure that we safeguard the integrity of our borders. So yes, we're doing some sort of border patrols along the borderline during this season. We are also doing blood blocks and snap checks in making sure that those who have entered Malawi illegally should be found maybe on their way in or outside Malawi, so that we should not compromise our national stability. On top of that, we're taking advantage of this festive season to sustain the general public on the evils of aiding and abetting. Also, at the same time, we are also preaching about patriotism and nationalism. So yes, we are indeed very busy and will not stop. As a department, we have got a mandate to control people entering and leaving the country, also at the same time safeguarding jobs for the natives. So what we'll be doing is like we've got some officers on the ground who will be checking permit compliance and enforcement, because we do understand that we have several foreign nationals who are in Malawi who are not complying with the type of permit that have been issued by the department. As such, we advise them to stop either business or work if at all they don't have that type of a permit.
Now, if you just tuned into Luntha TV, know that you're watching news coming to you live from Bishop Navy Media Center. But before we proceed, a recap of our top stories. Pope Francis reveals he wrote resignation later in 2013 in case of ill health. National Children's Parliament laments failure by MDAs to implement their resolutions. Ministry of Natural Resources moves to increase survival rate of planted trees with 85% in a bid to mitigate effects of climate change. And in international news, Ghana suspends payment of most external debts. Proceeding with the news, government has called for active participation by all stakeholders in various tree planting activities in a bid to mitigate the effects of climate change. Minister of Natural Resources and Climate Change, Asen Gaga, made the remarks early today as he disclosed to the ministry's plans to increase the survival rate of trees being planted from the current 65% to 85% this tree planting season. According to Gaga, the country targets to restore 29,000 hectares of land by planting over 50 million trees this season. We have more details in this report read by Alinafe Piri.
Every year, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Climate Change, through the Department of Forestry, hosts tree planting and management activities across the country from 15th December to 15th April the following year in a bid to raise awareness on the importance of trees and forests, as well as to promote a culture of planting and managing trees in Malawi. Speaking to journalists earlier today, Minister responsible Asen Gaga disclosed that the country has a target of restoring 29,000 hectares by planting 50 million trees and 9,000 hectares of natural regeneration, hence calling for joint effort in the initiative. Noting that the country is losing forest cover at an alarming rate, Gaga disclosed that the ministry is undertaking a number of policies and measures to address this trend, including the implementation of the Adopt a Forest initiative to support the incentivized local communities to restore degraded forest landscapes and to manage natural regeneration.
Let me say that the response has not been satisfactory, but we are encouraging more and more companies to join the initiative. We must commend such companies as National Bank, FDH Bank, that have adopted forests, the Tobacco Commission that are taking part in this initiative, and others that have come forward to be part of this initiative.
This year, the campaign for the commemoration of National Forestry Season will be carried out under the theme, Restore Degraded Forest Landscapes for Livelihood Security. Tree planting and forest management activities are expected to start with a launch by President Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chokora to take place in Mangochi Palm Forest on Friday, the 23rd of December 2022. Last year, the country planted 54 million trees from the targeted 40 million trees.
The government of Japan is supporting UNICEF Malawi country office with $380,000, which is equivalent to 392 million Malawi kwacha, in order to improve access to food, nutrition, water, sanitation and hygiene services while responding to the developmental needs of children in emergency situations emanating from climate-related shocks. This has been known through a joint press statement that the two parties released on the 18th of December this year. According to the country representative for UNICEF Malawi, Rudolf Schwenk, the government of Japan's contribution would be instrumental in saving children's lives and supporting the most vulnerable children and women in Malawi. We have more details on this report filed by Alinafe Piri.
Confirming the development, UNICEF Malawi country representative Rudolf Schwenk said this initiative, where with financial support from the government of Japan, UNICEF will implement the integrated nutrition and climate-resilient wash interventions, breaking the cycle of malnutrition and wash-related diseases project, will work towards improving access to food, nutrition and water, sanitation and hygiene for children living in most vulnerable districts affected by climate-related shocks. According to Schwenk, the project will run from January to December 2023 and targets in Sanje district, where its key focus will be on the most vulnerable children and women.
While responding to the developmental needs of children in emergency situations that result from climate-related shocks. As UNICEF, we will provide life-saving support to cholera-affected districts through an integrated approach focusing on health, water, sanitation, hygiene, food, as well as nutrition. And the government of Japan's contribution will be instrumental in saving children's lives and supporting the most vulnerable children and women in Malawi.
Through the statement, the government of Japan has indicated that the program aligns with its priority on global health and food security, as addressed during Tokyo International Conference on African Development, TICAD 8, held on the 27th and 28th of August this year. In his remarks, Sage Tashiro charges the affairs ad interim for the Embassy of Japan in Malawi, said recent climate shocks such as the tropical storms have left children in Malawi in an even harsher condition, hence the gesture to improve various issues children are facing, and hopes that the support will reach those most in need. Through this program, UNICEF will provide life-saving support to cholera-affected districts, in this case in Sanje, through an integrated approach focusing on health, wash, food and nutrition. Reporting for Luntha News, this is Alina Fiperi.
Now, in international news, Ghana has suspended payments on most of its external debt, effectively defaulting as the country struggles to plug its cavernous balance of payments deficit. Making the announcement early today, the country's finance minister clarified that it would not service debts including Eurobonds, commercial loans, and most bilateral loans, calling the decision an interim emergency measure, while some bondholders criticized the lack of clarity in the decision. The minister further said that government stands ready to engage in discussions with all of its external creditors to make Ghana's debt sustainable. The suspension of debt payments reflects the perilous state of the economy, which had led the government last week to reach a $3 billion staff level agreement with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. And that also brings us to the end of what we had for you in this edition of our news bulletin. But before we leave, a reminder of our top stories. Pope Francis reveals he wrote resignation later in 2013 in case of ill health. National Children's Parliament laments failure by MDAs to implement their resolutions. Ministry of Natural Resources moves to increase survival rate of planted trees with 85% in a bid to mitigate effects of climate change. And in international news, Ghana suspends payment of most external debts. You have been with me, Tandy Wenzumara. Thank you so much for keeping me company, and do continue staying tuned to bring you more programs. Goodbye for now, and do stay safe.